Hello, welcome back to our channel. Here you'll find stories that spark the imagination and make you see the world in a new way. Today we have an intriguing story about a mysterious book found in a cafe. What seemed like a forgotten object turned out to be the beginning of an unexpected journey. If you love captivating stories full of mystery, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Now let's dive in. The cafe was small, tucked away on a quiet street, and smelled of freshly brewed coffee and warm pastries. It was a haven for those who sought a moment of peace. The sound of light jazz music filled the air as customers quietly sipped their drinks and typed on their laptops. At a corner table, someone noticed a worn book lying forgotten on the seat. Its leather cover was scuffed, and the edges of its pages were frayed, suggesting it had been well-loved over the years. Curiosity sparked. Picking up the book, they noticed the title was faded, but inside the margins were filled with handwritten notes. The notes weren't random scribbles. They were conversations. Questions, thoughts, and even small sketches were written in neat handwriting. But what caught their attention was a simple message written on the first page. To whoever finds this, your story matters. Add your voice. Intrigued, they flipped through the pages, reading snippets of thoughts from strangers who had held the book before. One note asked, "What makes you truly happy?" Another responded, "Happiness is fleeting, but memories last forever." As they turned to the last few pages, they realized there was still room for their own words. But instead of writing something, they felt an urge to discover who had started this unique collection of voices. The cafe staff, when asked, couldn't provide any clues. The book was captivating, almost magnetic. With a sense of purpose, they decided to take it home. Certain. It held more than just words. It held a mystery waiting to be unraveled. The book sat on the table under the soft glow of a lamp. Its presence seemed to fill the room with an air of mystery. Flipping through the pages again, the notes began to reveal patterns. Names, dates, and even locations were scattered throughout. One note read, "Found this at the park bench near the fountain, June 5th. Another mentioned, "Passed this along to a stranger on the subway, September 14th. The book had traveled far, connecting strangers in a quiet, almost magical way. Near the middle of the book, a detailed sketch of a cafe caught their eye. It looked familiar, the same cafe where they had discovered the book. Beneath the drawing, someone had written, "This is where it all began." Driven by curiosity, they returned to the cafe the next morning. Armed with the book, they showed the sketch to the barista, hoping for answers. The barista, a cheerful person with a sharp memory, smiled knowingly. "Oh, that book. It's been here a few times," they said, handing over a coffee. "The person who started it used to sit by the window, always had a notebook and a cup of tea, but it's been months since I've seen them." The barista couldn't recall much else, but they mentioned something peculiar. The person always left small envelopes behind, tucked between the pages of books. Their heart raced as they flipped through the book again, carefully inspecting every page. And there it was, an envelope pressed between two pages near the end. The paper was yellowed, the edges slightly torn, but it was sealed. With trembling fingers, they opened the envelope. Inside was a small note that read, "Look beyond the words, and you'll find the truth." The mystery deepened. Who had started this? And what truth were they meant to uncover? The note lingered in their mind. "Look beyond the words and you'll find the truth." What did it mean? Was it a metaphor? Or was there something hidden within the book? Back at home, they examined the book more closely, running their fingers over the pages, feeling for anything unusual. At first glance, it seemed like an ordinary book filled with extraordinary messages. But as they held one page up to the light, something caught their eye, a faint watermark, almost invisible, at the bottom corner. It was a symbol, a small compass. Intrigued, they flipped to other pages and found the same watermark scattered randomly throughout the book. Each compass pointed in different directions, as though they were part of a larger map. With renewed determination, they laid the book flat and began marking the pages where the compass appeared. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The symbols formed a trail leading to specific sections of the book. One of the marked pages contained a cryptic message. "The library is where stories live forever." The words were underlined, and next to them, someone had drawn an arrow pointing toward the bottom margin. Beneath it, a faint scribble read, "Third shelf, second row." Without hesitation, they knew where they needed to go. There was a library just a few blocks away, an old building, with towering shelves and creaking floors. It was the perfect place for a book like this to leave its mark. Arriving at the library, they headed straight for the third shelf on the second row, their heart pounding with anticipation. There, nestled between dusty novels and forgotten encyclopedias, was another envelope, identical to the one they had found earlier. Inside, the note read, "You're closer than you think. Trust the story." The pieces of the puzzle were coming together, but the mystery was far from solved. What was this story leading to? The note from the library burned in their mind. "You're closer than you think. Trust the story." What story? And closer to what? On the way out of the library, they decided to ask the librarian, a kind older person with a vast knowledge of books and their histories. When shown the mysterious book, the librarian's eyes lit up with recognition. "This book," they said, tracing a hand over the worn leather cover, "has been a mystery for years. It first appeared here, left on a table, and soon after people began adding their own thoughts and passing it along. It's almost as though the book chooses its next reader." "Do you know who started it?" they asked. Hopeful, the librarian shook their head. "No one knows for sure, but there were rumors. Some say it was a writer searching for inspiration. Others believe it was a traveler trying to connect with strangers. But whoever it was, they left something special behind." The librarian paused, then added thoughtfully, "Trusting the story isn't about finding answers, it's about finding meaning in the journey." Though the words were comforting, they still craved more concrete answers. The book felt alive, as if it was guiding them, but to what end? As they left the library, they noticed a man sitting on a nearby bench, reading intently. Something about him seemed familiar, though they couldn't place why. Gathering courage, they approached him and held up the book. "Excuse me," they began. "Have you seen this before?" The man looked up, his face lighting up with recognition. "That book, I had it once. Found it at a train station years ago." "What happened after that?" they pressed, eager to learn more. "I wrote in it, like everyone does. But I also found something hidden between the pages. A train ticket to a town I'd never heard of. It felt like an invitation, so I went. That trip changed my life." "What did you find there?" The man smiled mysteriously. "You'll see. The book will show you." He stood, tipped his hat, and walked away, leaving them with more questions than answers. The story was still unfolding, and now they knew they couldn't stop until they reached the end. The book felt heavier now, not just in their hands, but in their mind. It wasn't merely a collection of pages. It was a living story, one that demanded to be followed to its conclusion. Clutching the book tightly, they examined it one more time. The train station. The man's words echoed in their head. There had to be something more. They flipped to the back of the book, where the last blank pages waited. But one page wasn't blank. It had a small corner folded. Carefully unfolding it, they found the faint outline of a train ticket. The name of a town was written in elegant handwriting. Willow Creek. Curiosity consumed them. The next day, they boarded a train heading to Willow Creek, a quiet town surrounded by rolling hills. When they arrived, it felt as though time had slowed down. The air was fresh, and the streets were lined with quaint houses and blooming flowers. Walking through the town, they searched for clues. It didn't take long to find one, a small bookstore with a sign that read, "Where Stories Begin." Inside, the air smelled of old paper and ink. The shelves were filled with books that seemed as ancient as the town itself. At the center of the store, a table held a single book. It was identical to the one they carried, but this one had a message written on the cover. "Every story needs a new beginning." The storekeeper, a gentle voice in the quiet space, approached. "You've brought it back," they said, smiling warmly. "What does it mean?" they asked, holding up the book. The storekeeper gestured toward the table. "This book isn't meant to be finished. It's meant to be shared. The one you hold is yours to keep. But here, another waits for its next traveler." For the first time, they understood. The book wasn't just a story. It was a journey, a connection between strangers who might never meet but shared their lives through words. Sitting at the table, they opened their book and began to write. Not as a seeker of answers, but as someone who now understood the magic of sharing a story. As they wrote, they felt a sense of peace. The mystery hadn't just been about uncovering the truth, it had been about discovering themselves. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel and check out the next story to learn even more. Together, we can keep growing.